Welcome one, welcome all to the Tortillas and Takes podcast. You're on once again with your boy, I'll be sure. We're opening this podcast up a lot more joyous than we were when we were watching this Texas Tech basketball team lose on the road to TCU after they just mollywopped a very bad Oklahoma State team. So to talk about the highs and lows of the Texas Tech men's basketball team, I had to bring in the Red Raider expert himself, Joe Lopez. What's going on, Joe?
Why didn't you just continue the song while you were rolling in, man? Come on.
Well, our other guest here, the People's Champ, Jeremy Gillen, right before we're about to record, I asked if we were ready, and he says, and the first thing I heard was, this much. All girls want to be like this. Fuse has been around that track, but it's not. I don't know the lyrics, but I ain't no holla back girl. That's as long as it goes. You know what I mean? As long as it goes.
Yep, that's right. It, buddy.
That's it. So, Jeremy, you got anything you want to say for yourself?
Absolute banger. You guys are privileged. I brought us in like that. Absolutely.
So, I don't know if y'all have seen on the thing on Twitter that's very popular now is putting like different beats and production with different lyrics, right? So like Kendrick Lamar's raps on somebody else's song, right? And so one thing I've learned about this whole like trend is Holla Back Girl goes with everything. It goes with everything. Like they've done that song probably more than anything else, and it's Holla Back Girl with like some other lyrics. I think I saw Kendrick Lamar's once. I think I saw like Tyler the Creator on one. Like it goes with everything. So yeah, shout out Gwen Stefani. You are amazing in the things that you do. So Texas Tech was amazing when we played Oklahoma State. We played Oklahoma State last Saturday in Stillwater, and Tech was great. I mean, beating down a team by almost 40, beat him by 38 points, 93-55, great defensive showing, put up 43 points in the first half, 50 points in the second half, just couldn't do anything wrong. The stadium was empty. I was like, I feel for you guys out there in Stillwater because I remember those 2012 Texas Tech days because that's exactly what it looked like, right? It was pretty empty. I did find myself, Joe, thinking that, I can't get a gauge of how good we really played in this game. I mean, JT Toppin went off 32 points, 12 rebounds. But at the same time, I didn't come away from this game thinking, oh, man, Texas Tech is amazing. We're great. We're, this, that, and the other. I really more so came away from this game of like, my God, how far has Oklahoma State fallen? This is such a terrible team. And it got to the point where it's just like, well, we don't really got to do anything else. Just pass it down to JT. They can't hold him.
Right. I mean, that's kind of part of the reason we didn't do a recap over that, because it's like, what are we recapping? An ass whooping? Like, just like, well, what do we learn from this basketball team beating a really bad Oklahoma State basketball team, other than just going in there and doing what we needed to do, assert our dominance, and essentially just not miss a shot at any point in time, and then just hold them on the defensive side. I mean, out rebounded, just out hustled, just the toughest team wins. And, it's kind of a night and day difference from how you played in Stillwater. And then you take your act, just down 35 into TCU and Fort Worth. And, you don't show up at all for 35 minutes of that game. So it's kind of two different games altogether there in that couple of days span.
Yeah, it's so, and we can really hop right to it because, to your point, I mean, there's really not too much to talk about again in this Oklahoma State game. Right? Hawk had 11 points, 8 rebounds, 11 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds. McMillan had 10 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. CA had a lot of time off the bench because he was able to have a lot of time off the bench with 16 points. And then KO also played a lot in this game too, and he hasn't got an opportunity to get him as many minutes. So, him having 13 points, 5 assists, or 5 rebounds. And it's always great when our human victory lap comes in the name of Jack Francis, as he gets some burn there. So to that point, Jeremy, the game was great, it was solid, and it was almost like you finished that up, and you actually tweeted from our account of like it's almost like they drank too much of the being 9th ranked Kool-Aid, because you're 12th ranked, you beat a team by 38, you're feeling good, you're like, man, our stuff don't stink, you're top 10 in the country, and you just think you can coast and you can just go into TCU like they're nobody. And they talked about on the broadcast that TCU is a team that's on the bubble. If you beat the 9th ranked team in the country. You need to stack as many quad 1 wins as possible. But 2, you beat the number 9 ranked team in the country. Joe Lunardi's going to have you win. They're going to have you win the tournament. And Tech didn't play like a team. They didn't play like a team that was being hunted.
I think that what I tweeted was our team somehow was convinced that a bunch of AP voting nerds, said, hey, this is one of the top 10 teams in the nation. And they were like, all right, great. So now we don't have to try. But you bring up a good point. TCU fighting for contention, fighting for a spot in the tournament. And I think the announcers mentioned it early on. They're 3-0 against top 10 teams in the past 3 games. They played top 10 teams at home. So like TCU is trying very hard to legitimize their season and kind of overcome some things. And I understand the notion of, okay, TCU probably doesn't need our all because they won against Oklahoma State on a fluke half-court shot. So we just run-ruled Oklahoma State, so we should be good to go. Like, I see that line of thinking, but it is completely disrespectful to the Big 12 because it's like, oh, they're going to play. It's going to all pan out the same when you're a completely different team than Oklahoma State, and TCU is not playing Oklahoma State. They're game planning for you. It was very similar of the Arizona game on a different talent level of just like TCU just came out very hot. They just came out ready. They got down a little bit ahead, but then they were like, you know what? We got the vision in sight. Like, we've got our goal and we're going to go for it. And our guys just didn't stay on the pedal. And it really kind of bit us in the ass early on. And yeah, this game was, oh boy, this was frustrating. As like coming into like, it's almost like when Texas Tech gets to that top 10 level, I have a PTSD of like, something bad is going to happen. We can't stay here. We don't belong here, right? We're the surprise team that comes up from the teens, and it's like, oh yeah, actually pretty good. But once we get up there, too slippery.
And that's historically been the case, right? Not just this time. I mean, even the wonderful 2019 season that happened, where we get up there, top 10 rank. Hey, good job, Texas Tech. You're really proving yourself. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, actually, take this upset. I will say, and we'll get into the details of this TCU loss here in a little bit. It did make me feel a type of way where I was like, so we get court stormed. That's new. When TCU's throwing the court, I'm like, okay, that's new. That's new. I don't remember ever getting court stormed. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm sure it's happened. I'm not saying it's never happened before. I just don't. Maybe in the 2019 season or 2018 season, and maybe it happened. I'd have to look back on it. I don't remember it. And I definitely was like, it almost took me from a, man, this game sucks, to look at that. Look how far we've come. And it's I will say, because basketball is such a long season, you can take some solace in some of these L's. But Joe, what was your overall thoughts about this game?
I just thought that TCU just played a really good game. They came out more motivated than us. They're on that fringe, bubble team there, first 4 out, last 4 in kind of line on the bracketology across the board. So they needed something to sustain. And, it just so happened that, the number 9 ranked team, Texas Tech, rolls into town, and they're retiring a jersey from a really good basketball player that they had there. And then they played harder than Texas Tech did for at least 35 minutes of this game. And Jeremy was right. It kind of gives you a lot of back of what Arizona did to us with, like, Henry Vassar was just kind of bullying our guys down low. Ernest Uday was doing the same thing to us this game as well. So it was just kind of just like a flashback to what happened in Tucson a little bit over a week ago. And it was just like, you know, they came and hit us in the mouth. Yeah, we didn't get knocked out, but they hit us in the mouth and we were never right after that. We got back, we got that lead back, but even at that point when we got that lead, it still didn't feel great at that point in time. And then, ultimately what happened. So a lot of similarities to the Arizona game for sure. And you could pick and choose your statistic that'll verify that as well.
And a lot of similarities, except TCU is not as good, and the home court advantage wasn't as good, right? And so that makes it even worse. This game was a neutral site game. There was half the crowd at least sounded like they were Tech fans. That was there, as it typically does in Fort Worth. So as we get into the game, so the first 10 minutes of the game was pretty even, trading buckets back and forth. It was 14-14, 10 minutes into the game. And then, I did, when I was watching this, expect, okay, pretty close game, what expected when you start a season or start a game like this. But then Tech would be the one to punch in the mouth, similar to what we've done the last few games. And it was TCU, to your point, Joe, that really hit us in the mouth starting off, right? Even after that 14-14, gaining that first considerable lead there in the first half, and then stretching it out to an 8-point lead at halftime. And so that was really, at that halftime score, right, that last couple jumpers, right, to stretch that lead out to 8 at halftime was the first time I was like, yeah, we really coasted here. We really let this happen to where now we're having to play catch up, because it really was a battle the first, really, I say 10 minutes, really first 15 minutes. It really was a battle. And then TCU just said, we're going to go on this one little run here real quick. It was 24-21. They said, we're just going to go on a nice little run, Texas Tech. There ain't going to be nothing you can do about it. And they did stretch it out there to that 8-point lead at halftime. And now you are playing catch up for the majority of the second half. Jeremy, what were your thoughts at halftime there?
A little disheartened, honestly, to be down by so much and to feel like, and I think I tweeted at some point, I was like, Uday is kind of really annoying. This guy is a problem, because he was bullying us. He gave me straight Vasar, like he was just bullying everybody down low. Now, when it came to it, ultimately Toppin out rebounds him throughout the game, but it felt like Uday was constantly under the rack every time we were trying to go up. He was just there. He was making a presence, he was boxing people out. And it gave us, it handicapped us, I felt like, towards the end of that first half, of just like not being able to capitalize, not being able to create transition, not being able to rebound effectively, to capitalize on those rebounds. Like there was a time where we went up like 4 times trying to get to and nothing. I'm like, brother, if we can't get a layup, this game is over. And 36-28, I was like, I kind of stopped tweeting, because I was like, I'm going to do other stuff while I'm listening to the game, because if I just sit and watch this, I'm going to be this is going to ruin my night. So it was not good, man. Not good.
Yeah, and we've seen this a little bit, right? When JT Toppin can't just overpower the other player, he struggles a bit. And I do wish, a part of me, I do wish that he would. I think he has that finesse aspect of his game. He really does. He has the aspect of his game where he can really be that finesse player, and hit some of those mid-range jumpers, hit some of those turnarounds, and he can be that type of player. We just he hasn't done that as much. I would like to see him, if only Bryson Williams can come back and kind of give him a little bit of the footwork that he used to display, right? Because Bryson Williams, I think, was really good at adapting. And today I'm going to get you with a bully ball. This next day, oh, this guy's a little bit bigger. All right, we're going to bring you up a little bit and give you a little of the dream shake. And I do think JT Toppin has it in him. I do think he has a bit of that Bryson Williams game, or has the ability to do that in him. But when he's going up against a guy like Uday, and taking a step back, I think it'd be good for Toppin when it comes to his pro prospects to think of it that way as well, because you're not playing center in the NBA, right? You're going to play Anthony Davis type of play in the NBA. You're going to be that, stretch 4, stretch whatever. And so I would like to see a scenario where Toppin in a game against Uday, where you do not have the size advantage at all. Uday is much bigger than you are, where you brought him out a little bit. But to both of y'all's points, He wasn't able to do that. And so whenever your best player is struggling like this, I think you need somebody else to step up. And on a lot of games, other players have, right? A lot of games other players have. This game, right, it was sporadic between D5 and McMillan. And we started seeing them, especially Darian Williams in the second half, catch on. And that's what got us back into the game there, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. D5 started to, personally take it, like, hey, I'm going to need to do something more to get us in a position to win this basketball game. And, that's what great players do. They could put a team on their back. I mean, we saw what McMillan was able to do for a couple of games there, put this basketball team on his back and essentially carry, like the Houston game and some of these other basketball games where, he shot lights out from the floor. And he's still a great player, but, Darian Williams is also a great player. And he did what he was supposed to do. Started, flat fighting and clawing. The defense bared down a little bit, got a couple stops on the defensive side, was able to put buckets in on the other side, chop that lead down into something, like, okay, this now we care, right? Now we care about this game. For the first 20 minutes, it didn't seem like that care or the willingness to go into the box and, be rough with them or, battle for rebounds and all of that stuff. That fight wasn't there. And, at that point in time, I was like, okay, here's the first spark, or here's that first beaming light that this basketball team needed to get a push, to make this a game and ultimately try to take it over to come out of Fort Worth with the victory. But, we all know it didn't happen that way. But at that particular point in time, then you start feeling a little bit better about where this basketball team was at.
Yeah, and so in that second half, to your point, so we started getting back into it. We're down 8. And at one point we came close to being down double digits. We were down 9, but then, like you said, those guys started making those buckets to get us in, and we started chipping away, and then finally we get the opportunity there with 8 minutes to go in the game where we take the lead. And I mentioned it in pre-pod. At that moment, Toppin makes his free throws. We have the lead. In my head, I'm like, all right, cool. We first 32 minutes of this game, we really didn't care. Kind of sleptwalk a little bit. But, with the 9th-ranked team in the country, we're just that good, I guess. When a team that TCU did a great job game planning for us. TCU did all the right things. They studied the film. They like I'll mention as far as the Arizona game, they knew what to do. They knew they had to bully Toppin a little bit. They knew they had to keep Darian Williams a little bit more on the perimeter. They knew they had to cloud Elijah Hawkins' passing lanes. They knew they had to make sure that McMillan didn't get free releases. All of that. They did their homework. And we still got the lead here with 8 minutes to go in the game. We're just that good. And my thoughts there, Jeremy, was that we have the lead here. We are not going to relinquish it because we are just that good. And that's not what happened.
No, but that was exactly where mine went to. That okay, it went at the half. I was disappointed, yes, and I was like, there's a lot's going wrong, but I do trust in McCaslin. I trust in a winner of a coach that he is, and I trust his team that we've got the right guys to do it, right? For me, it's like one of two ways, right? With the Arizona game, it was bullied early, bullied all game. But there's been a lot of games where it's like bullied early, clap back, and like, you know what? You do not deserve to be on the same basketball court as us. And playing really well, playing like the team that we know that they can be. This was an interesting blend of the like where it felt like that we got was like a 14-something run. I was like, hey, I see you, Horned Frogs.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of stopped immediately. I was like,
the momentum. To that point, the momentum just stopped. Like all of that, we went on a big run. I think it was like a 17. It was if I'm not mistaken, a 17-6 run to go from down 8 to up 3. Right, we went on this run. Timeouts called, and it's like we're just gonna win the game. Like it's hey, TCU couldn't like good job, good effort, but we're just gonna go and win. All right, in USA East, just and the Raider power was loud. You could hear it through the TV. It's like good, But to TCU's credit, after that timeout, they came back hooping. Right, they just came back hooping. They wouldn't go away. They kept nipping our heels. Noah Reynolds can eat one, right?
That's right.
He kept and he did the smart thing of getting to the line, doing what he needed to do. He was also, if you remember the first game we played, against this team, Noah Reynolds was the guy that was also just a thorn in our sides, right? Even before when we beat them by 14 earlier, Noah Reynolds was the guy that was basically playing by himself. And again, he screwed us over in this game too, right? And so those TCU, just after it looked like they were just going to be out of it, they didn't just falter. They didn't just play dead. And it almost felt like once again, Tech was like, all right, now that we're up 3, we can just coast because they're just going to, give up and we'll be fine. And they just didn't. They fought back. And as much as I don't like giving Jamie Dixon credit, I kind of have to. I thought his team was well prepared and they kept fighting.
Absolutely. Also, they were able to control the pace. This is something that Tech is. Their offense is methodical. They slow things down. They run things at their pace. And going back to the Arizona game, Arizona was able to get us out of our comfort zone, which is our pace. TCU, and like you said, hate to give Dixon credit here because, the game plan that he ran killed any kind of pace that we had. And once they established that lead, we're not built to just go and up and down the court, up and down the court, up and down the court to just score points at wills. There's those flurries where we get consecutive points, possession after possession, but it's how we do it. It's not because it's based on how the other team is performing itself with how their tempo of the game is being ran. And their defense played well. They had us high out past the 3-point line on those switches. They were doubling top end. We weren't finding the open guy when those doubles happen. It was just tough to watch this team go from what they did the previous week and what they had been doing consistently on the road to a team that looked like this was the very first time that they had seen a player getting trapped, and it was brutal. It was brutal.
Yeah. Not great at all. So Texas Tech did end up losing this game. I will say every time it seemed like we were completely out of it, we would hit like a huge shot. I was like, of course, we're just – because like the talent kept oozing through still, right? The talent from McMillan, the talent from Elijah Hawkins, the talent from Darren Williams kept oozing through even when it didn't deserve to. I mean, we're down 6 and McMillan comes off of a flare screen into a open 3 into a 3, a few steps back from 3-point line, cash money. And I'm like, dude, you're so good. Like, why can't you just – we could have done this before, it's crazy. So I think with this, so Texas Tech does lose this game 69-63. TCU storms the court, like I was mentioning before. JT Toppin ended finishing up the game, 14 points, 11 rebounds. D5 had 21 points, 5 assists. Hawkins, not the best shooting night, but still made an impact offensively with his 9 assists, only 2 turnovers. And then McMillan had 19 points, 4 rebounds himself. I think one big thing is though McMillan and D5 were able to get some stuff going there in the second half, and though Toppin, nobody else really stepped up, right? Kerwin Walton had another cardio game. Fed, who's struggled recently, continued to struggle in this game, even as Toppin was getting bullied. And then Christian Anderson also didn't have the greatest night. And Christian Anderson's a freshman. He's going to have up and down nights. I'm not worried about that. But I think games like this, where you only have 4 players play, is what it felt like, right?
Right.
We're not winning too many games if nobody else can. If KO, Kerwin Walton, Christian Anderson, and Federico are just out there getting cardio, we're just not going to be able to win very many games.
Yeah, this was the first game where it looked like Christian Anderson was a freshman. And it's not fair to say that, right? Because he's played above where his classification is right now, and it's really not fair to say that. But this is one of those games where it kind of looked like he was in over his head at certain points of the game. Yes, he made some shots there, and he put some points on the board, played some pretty good defense. But this was one of those games where he looked like a freshman. But no disrespect there. It's just those things happen. He's young. He's a young kid. But
and he should be able to have that regression game.
Right.
He should be able to have it. It shouldn't be like if he wouldn't have done that, we would have won this game. You can't put that on a freshman. Kerwin Walton, you shot 5 buckets, you made none. Come on, buddy.
Right.
Like, you got to make your shots, and you got to make it on the road. We were a really good road team, and we can be. But, you got to get stuff to Overton. You took 4 shots, you made none, buddy. Like,
yeah. You know what it is? I didn't talk enough mess about Curran Walton. I didn't
That's
talk
right.
mess. I didn't say he was trash. Right. The other day I said he was trash, and he balls out and has the best game of the season. Right. And so trust me, this next game and this next game, the close game we have, I will say it in the chat. I will let the two of you know my feelings about Curran Walton on this team. And then he'll explode and make me look stupid. But I think another piece is that I do think one of the things that TCU did a really good job on was driving to the lane, forcing refs to make calls, getting to the free throw line in this game. And there was a lot of complaints from fans about referee calls. Did referees miss calls? Yes, absolutely. No question. They missed a lot of calls. They missed a lot of calls against us. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I also think we didn't force their hand enough. So it's a combination of two, right? Now, whether you could make an argument that because we're not getting calls, we feel like there's no point, maybe, but you still got to force their hand stuff. I will say 22 free throws for TCU, 8 free throws for Texas Tech is not good, right? And so I'm not going to I'm not want somebody to sit here and say, oh, well, refs hate us because of this. Most of the time it's because you're not attacking the paint enough as much. And we weren't. TCU was attacking the paint more than we were. Right. And that's just the fact of the matter. Noah Reynolds, especially, who's a free throw artist, was attacking the paint a lot more than any of our players were. Right. Actually, I said 8 free throws, 6 of them were from JT. That's unacceptable. Right. And so both CA and McMillan lived on the perimeter. They pushed D5 to the perimeter for a lot of the game purposely. That makes sense. Darren Williams, that is most dangerous in the mid-range. So they executed their game plan effectively, and that's just not how we gotta impose our will a little bit more to be able to win games like this, and we simply did not. So this game does put Texas Tech to 11-4 in conference, 20-6 on the year. We're unlikely to still be top 10 ranked, but you never know. But one thing it does do, and we did talk about this in pre-pod, is it does really make it that much more difficult for Texas Tech to win the Big 12 conference. I mean, we mentioned it in the last episode, how it was right there. The Big 12 championship was right there in front of us. At the time, we were 2 games back from Houston, 1 game back from Arizona. Well, now with this loss, we are now 2 games back from, we're still a game back from Arizona because shout out to them losing, but we're now 3 games back from Houston. Houston continues to win. And though their next 2 games are going to be tough, they play Iowa State and then they play us right afterwards. Houston could lose both of those games and still be leading the Big 12, right? They have a gap now, and we're not making it a lot easier. So it was already going to be a tall task to try to win this conference. It now just became an even taller task because now it's one of those situations where Tech could win out and still likely not win the conference. So, yeah. It's tough, Joe. It's tough.
It's very tough. But, it's like you said, it was already a tall ask anyway to do that, to come out and win all of those games to at least. Now I think you're just fighting to have a bye week or a bye game in the Big 12 tournament itself to where you're one of those top 4 teams to where you don't have to play the first game. You get that breather at the start and then the tournament starts for yourself. And I think that's a more realistic goal for this basketball team to have. I'm not saying that the Big 12 championship isn't going to happen, but if I was putting a percentage on it, I'd probably be less than 5% right now as far as, where my gut's saying right now. So, yeah.
How much money would you bet on a Texas Tech Big 12 championship?
Like
I bet $1 at this point because the cash out on that would be insane.
You're not betting that. You're not betting the apartment. Bet the house, Jeremy.
Bet the house. No, absolutely not. To me, there's no way, and that's not a bad thing. It's just we tripped up early and we didn't keep our pace late, and it's just like it's in order to get the Big 12 championship. To me, is an incredible achievement. It is not like any other conference, right? It takes a lot of week in, week out. You got to win. So it takes a very dynamic style of basketball, dynamic style of coaching, and it's truly a gauntlet. Even in its down years, you can still lose to anybody. And so you got to be on your A game. And so, I mean, I expect Houston to win again because even though they tripped up against us, and they may trip up again, you guys watch. They've won, they've done the most this season. So, man, that's just Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah. That's just Kelvin Sampson, the guy who I now think is the second best coach in college basketball. Dan Hurley has the title of number one. You win back-to-back national championships. You get to have the title. He was able. I don't know if y'all saw. He yelled that as a ref that don't you turn your back on me. I'm the best coach in the effing nation. Y'all saw that?
No.
Absolutely not.
He didn't? Yeah, no, he yelled at a ref. He said, don't turn your back on me. I'm the best coach in the effing nation. This happened a few weeks ago.
That's right.
On one hand, I'm like, man. Yeah, no, so it's funny. It's because one of those things where you can only say that if you really are the best coach in the nation. Right?
Yeah, right.
Like it's because you're and he is an a-hole, but at the same time, it's like, well, you're lucky you are the best coach in the country.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine if Mike Boynton said that last year. We'd be like, motherfucker.
Drug test that man.
Yeah.
Bro.
So Texas Tech unfortunately loses 69-66. So we're going to rebound this weekend at home, thank God, back in the friendly confines of the USA against West Virginia. Now this is a West Virginia, again, another bubble team, another team that is fighting for their bubble lives, trying to stack up as many quad one wins as possible. Best thing they can do is beating a 9th-ranked Texas Tech team on the road. This is, and for West Virginia, this is their last great win of the season. They're not going to have another opportunity to say, hey, committee, look at us, right? As I'm looking at their resume right now, they beat Iowa State when Iowa State was the second-ranked team in the country at home way back when. And then when everybody still respected Kansas, they beat them on the road too. That Kansas road win is the best win of the season right now for this West Virginia team. They desperately need a very good win, right? This win, if West Virginia was to beat Texas Tech this weekend, it'd be the best win of the season. And so Tech has to find a way to understand this. I mentioned it before. This loss to TCU has the potential to completely change our season. I actually think it will change our season in one of two ways. I actually do, and I'll make this declaration. All right, I will make this declaration. Texas Tech will either turn it around in the fact of we cannot take any of these teams for granted from now on. We cannot coast in any of these situations, and we got to make sure to kill everybody in front of us, including Houston, including West Virginia, Houston, Kansas, Colorado, Arizona State. We're not sleepwalking from now on. We're on 10. We're on go from here on out. Or we have been exposed by Arizona and TCU, and teams that have the ability to do that, like Kansas, because Kansas can definitely play like TCU did. That game will be on the road. So teams that have that ability will show that ability. And we're going to have a tough time against both West Virginia and Houston, or West Virginia and Kansas specifically, because they're the ones that can play like Arizona and TCU can. And we'll start seeing that in the Big 12 tournament and the NCAA tournament. I think it'll go one of those two ways.
It's a fair prediction. I don't want it to happen. Well, I don't think it happens. Not with this coaching staff. I don't think it has.
I don't think so either. I do think it's more likely that they say, "See, we told you. We told you if you slept walked in this game. We told you that if you took these things for granted, this is what was going to happen." Because we haven't had many bad losses in conference at all. Actually, we lost to UCF the first conference game of the season. We haven't had a bad loss since. And I'm not even saying this is necessarily a bad loss. TCU is not a bad team. They're a bubble team. It's a road game, etc. Like this loss isn't as bad as UCF. It's not as bad as St. Joe's, right? I would probably say this is, it's not as bad as those two, but it's not a good loss, right? It's not a loss that you can hang your hat on. Again, the losses to Arizona and to A&M, I was like, okay, but like this is the worst loss now. But this is This is probably the worst loss we've had since UCF. So this is definitely a game I can see McCaslin saying, "I told you guys."
Yeah, I mean, we say it all the time about stacking success, right? And you have to be able to sustain success too whenever you get to that point. And they get into the top 10, and it's like you feel. And this is all spec. I'm not saying the team thought that they were entitled, like, oh yeah, we deserve to be here, and people are just going to roll over for us now because who we are and where we're ranked. And that just doesn't happen like that. So for me, it's just, being able to sustain that success. I think that, it doesn't really matter where we're at top 25 rankings. As long as we just make the tournament, we could be a very dangerous team. It doesn't matter where we land or what our draw is. We could be a team that could make a run. So you just need to be playing your best ball, right? And we thought we were starting to see that, especially after that Oklahoma State basketball game, like, oh, we're really about to turn this up a notch. And then for this TCU game to happen, that, that maybe that's what we needed to reset everything, to say, hey, look, this is as bad as it's going to get. And if we don't correct it, we're going to have an early exit like we did last year. So I think it wakes them up.
Yeah, that's the hope. Yeah, I agree. And it does kind of give you flashbacks of more glory years in terms of Tech's kind of deeper run seasons, where there's usually a game late in the season where it's like, we didn't have it together. And for whatever reason, and I think that this time it was a sense of, we went to double overtime against Arizona State, but we survived. And then just a couple of days later, we went into Stillwater and we dropped, an atomic bomb on that team. And so the expectation was, now we can kind of just do that against TCU, and TCU was a buzzsaw because they're dying to get into the tournament. West Virginia is very similar. West Virginia's had some good games this season. They've also had some pretty bad games this season. They're pretty streaky, which is why they're kind of at the middle of the table, slinking around the bottom of the middle. But West Virginia is definitely another team that they're just dying to get their chance. Like I said, like Albert said, like this would be a huge stamp for them of like, oh, we beat Texas Tech while they still have the number 9 ranking, right? We beat a top 10 team again on the road in the Big 12. As we get closer to Selection Sunday, it's like that's the kind of game that you need whenever people are worrying, like, going about, okay, well, does this team have what it takes, right? But on the opposite side, buddy, like we are having one of the best seasons, regular seasons for Texas Tech basketball. Definitely one of the best conference seasons, right? We've played so well in conference. We've won more games early on than we ever have. Like, McCaslin's doing an amazing job, and I really trust, and Joe knows him best, but like, I trust this coaching staff and the belief of this team to rally around that and to do something about it. Because like, you have a chance, like, if the back end of the schedule is not terrible. We talked about it earlier. You have a really good chance to get, you can get close to 25-6, 16-4 walking into the tournament. Like, that's insane. That's insane. But you have to buy in. And this team has shown buy-in. Like, this team has shown buy-in a lot this season. And when they do, this is a team that people are like, could this be a national contender? We're in the damn trapezoid of excellence. So the potential is there, right? We're one of the select few. So act like it, right? That's my thing. It's just act like it. So
yeah. So, guys, we were ranked 9th in the country when we lost this game. I want to take you back through history a little bit, gentlemen. In 2022, the glorious Mark Adams year. He was technically here for 2 years, but we like to act like he was only here for 1. So in the 2022 season, there was a point in time, fellas, where we reached the number 13th ranking. You know what we did when we were number 13th ranked? We lost. We lost to Kansas, but it was okay. Kansas was 5th ranked. We're fine. We got our way back up, and we were ranked 9th in the country. You know what happened when we were ranked 9th in the country, gentlemen? We lost. We lost to Oklahoma, right? And so we had to build it up. We went down, but we went back up. We beat Baylor. We beat Texas. We were back to being 9th ranked in the country. You want to know what happened, guys? We lost to TCU, right? 3 times we were ranked. There were in this season we were ranked top 15, and while we were ranked top 15, we lost 4 times that season. That is the 2022 season. So what about the year before? Right? Maybe that was a 1-year fluke. The year before, there was Chris Beards last year. Right? What happened the year before? Well, there was a point in time where what happened is we started out the season ranked, preseason ranking 14th in the country. We lost to Houston, a team that was ranked lower than us. But that's okay. Houston wasn't ranked that much lower than us. We'll be fine. We get back up to a top 15 ranking. We lose to Kansas. That's okay. Kansas is pretty good. We get back to a top 15 ranking. We lose to Oklahoma State. But then we get back to a top 15 ranking. We lose to Baylor. But it was Baylor. We don't really lose our ranking fast. The next game we play, we actually shockingly move up the rankings to number 10 without playing another game after losing to Baylor. We lost to West Virginia. But that's okay. We win a couple more games. We now get a top 10 ranking. Number 7 in the country. We're in. We lose to West Virginia. Then we lose the next game to Kansas. Then we lose the next game to Oklahoma State. And we lose our last game to Baylor. Maybe, you know what? That was Beers last year. He's probably out of it. He's probably already looking towards Austin. It's an anomaly. It's fine, guys. We go to the 2020 season, the year right before. Still a pretty good team. Preseason ranked 13th in the country. But in that first month in November, while we're ranked 12th in the country, we lose to Iowa, Creighton, and DePaul back to back. Remember that? Both of them were overtime losses out in Vegas. So we completely fall out the rankings because you can't lose 3 games in a row. Right. But it's okay. We fight. We claw our way back to a top 20 ranking, but then we lose to TCU and Kentucky on back-to-back days. Out of the rankings because you can't lose back-to-back games anyway. But that's okay, guys. We fight our way back to a ranking, then we lose to Oklahoma State. So we're out of the rankings again. But then we fight our way back into the rankings, and then we lose 4 straight games. But COVID saves us. COVID saves us. There's no NCAA tournament. That was the Jemias Ramsey year, the year that we were all pissed. We were like, are we even going to make the tournament? This team stinks. So what about the year before? The year before we go to the national championship games. The national championship game, there's no way that we still have this curse of rankings. There's no way. We even started out the season unranked. They didn't even respect us or believe in us. So we had to fight and claw our way to a top 15 ranking. You know, we were number 12th ranked in the country, and then we lose to Duke in New York. But that's okay. Duke was the number 2 team in the country. It's no big deal. We actually even move up in the rankings because of that. We go all the way to a top 10 ranking, right? And you know what? We win. We're the number 8th ranked team in the country, and we beat Oklahoma and Texas. We win. We prove that we deserve to be there. So we continue there, right? No, we end up losing 3 straight games right after that. 3 straight. 3 straight. And then we ended up losing another game while we were 16th ranked to Kansas. Now, I will say this is the team that might have broken the record for top 15 because we got back to top 15 and we kept winning. We beat Oklahoma State, we beat Baylor, we beat Kansas. We finally get the respect. We're finally top 10 ranked. And we're Big Monday. We beat Texas. We beat Iowa State. We go to the Big 12 tournament. We have the highest ranking we've had all season, 7th ranked in the country, and we lose round 1 in the Big 12 tournament to West Virginia. Now the team went on to go to the national championship game, so it's not a big deal. But and that was the team that probably broke the curse more than anybody. So I'm sure it's continued the year before. That's where they learned how to do it. 2018, I'm sure, was just amazing. They learned how to do it in that season, right? The very first game that season, we were ranked 22nd ranked in the country. We lost to Seton Hall. Very first game. Very first season game we were ranked. But what happened when this great team was top 10? First time they were top 10. They were an 8th ranked team in the country. January 9th, 2018, we lose to Oklahoma. Very first game. But we bounced back Saturday, beat West Virginia. We're good. We don't lose our ranking at all because Oklahoma's a good team. We're fine. We're fine. We're all right. Hey, screw you, Trae Young. We're fine. But then the next week we lost to Texas and then lost to Iowa State. And we lose at the number 8th ranking. We lose 3 out of the 4 games in those 2 weeks. So that's okay. That's okay. We're gonna still be fine. We claw our way all the way up to the 7th ranking, highest ranking of the year. Then we lose to Baylor. We lose to Oklahoma State. We lose to Kansas. We lose to West Virginia. 4 straight L's. Do you want me to keep going? I can go to the Bob Knight years. I don't. This is Texas Tech. I should have known what was going to happen the second we got that 9th ranking, Jeremy. The second we got it, I should have known what was about to happen. This has been the way almost every year since 2018. This is ridiculous.
It's the script.
My God.
Yeah. It's the script. We can't avoid it, apparently. Damn.
How long you been working on that bit, man?
I was ready. That was honestly, I've been loading up the first 40 minutes of this podcast just for that right there. Because I went through some research today. I was like, we're going to get on the podcast.
17 windows open on your Google.
And then this year, click. Blah, 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 blah. And then you have to click. Da, da, da.
Oh goodness, we gotta find a way to fight this though. We gotta find a way to fight this. Hopefully it starts. We already got the bug for this week for against TCU, so hopefully it doesn't continue against West Virginia. But as I went through the dark horse of the years, we know it can. So Tech, we know it can. All right, so let's not do that. There is another team on campus that plays the sport of basketball, kind of.
Do they?
The Lady Raiders. So you may be asking yourself, Albie, last year we covered the Lady Raiders. The last 2 years, we've covered the Lady Raiders every single game. Why not this year? Because I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm sick and tired. I can't. Guys, I'm sorry. And you may say to yourself, well, would you do this if the men were this bad? Probably. I probably would. If the men were this bad, if this podcast was around in 2012, I don't know if we would be covering the men. Actually, if this podcast was around in 2012, we probably would have been covering the Lady Raiders every game and not covering that, right? But that's the era we're in. We're back in the era of the mid-2010 Lady Raider basketball with how bad this team is, right? And you may be saying maybe I'm being hyperbolic. I don't think I am. Right? We are currently in the midst of a 7-game losing streak. 7-game losing streak. We just lost to Cincinnati by 3. And you know what's funny? That last week we lost to Baylor by 5. And I have a stern rule. There's no such things as moral victories unless you suck. And when I did not watch the Baylor game. I'm not gonna lie to you. I did not watch the Texas Tech Baylor game for the Lady Raiders. But I saw that we lost by 6. Sorry. I saw that we lost by 6. And I said, oh, good job, ladies. Moral victory. No such thing as a moral victory unless you suck. And guess what? We suck. So losing to Baylor by 6, hey, good job, guys. Moral victory, you. That's where we're at with this program. So it's not a good program. We lose to Cincinnati by 3. Again, I guess you can. That's not a good team. They're an okay team. They're not a bad team. Losing to them by 3 at home, I guess you take what you can get, right? Our next couple games, we have a game at UCF. That's terrible. UCF is awful, girl, ladies. UCF is terrible. They stink. But I cannot confidently say we're going to win that game. That team stinks, but I cannot say we're going to win that game. We have to go up against at Arizona. That's also not a good team. They're not a bad team. They're not a good team. That should be a winnable game. I cannot tell you with full confidence that is going to be a winnable game. And then we end the season against Colorado. And that's a game I don't think we can win, even though it's at home, even though it's against a team that's not ranked, even though it's against a team that's right now. I would probably say the kind of bubble-esque right now Colorado is, but I 1 and 2 is what maybe I could see us, and then that would be a team that once again would have a losing record in the season. So instead of talking about the Lady Raiders, Joe and the
Jeremy.
Other person. I'd rather talk about a certain individual. So this individual had with the high school basketball playoffs in full effect. My Dickinson Gators lost to Atascocita in the first round, but hey, what you gonna do? Atascocita went to the state championship game like a year or two ago. They just did like that. But a certain person in her first game had 44 points. You know what they did after that? Followed it up with 50 points. This same person just broke the school record, single season points record for Monterey High School. You know who had the record before? The same person who had it in their junior year, broke it again in their senior year. She's putting together arguably the greatest single season in high school, or well, I'm not gonna say the greatest, one of the greatest seasons in high school girls basketball ever, right? And obviously I'm talking about Aaliyah Chavez. Aaliyah Chavez has already put together an incredible career from her freshman year, from her 8th grade year to junior year. And with all the commotion, you'd say, okay, well, she can probably take a break. She can probably coast right now. Her AAU Cy-Fair season is over. Monterey. It's not the district out that Monterey plays in isn't just a mammoth district to begin with. She probably coast. No, she just went forward and just did her thing, just put herself on the map. Was out here. There's a video where she's talking smack to the number 2 player in the nation, right? Talking about I'm in your city, but you ain't trying to play me. Yeah, that's right. Nobody is trying to play you. And so all while she's still uncommitted. Aaliyah, I know you listen to this podcast. I know you and your family listen to this podcast. Big friends of the pod. Let me tell you something. I don't usually do this. I have a big no mentioning recruits policy, personally, for me, myself, and I. We need Aaliyah Chavez so desperately at Texas Tech. I don't think there's ever been a single recruit in any sport from high school that could change the trajectory of a program more than if Aaliyah Chavez went to Texas Tech. It's program changing if she decides to go to Texas Tech. And it doesn't make sense why she would choose us. It really doesn't. The program is in disarray. It's in shambles. We talked about this a year ago where we said that this is the most important season in our Lady Raider history simply because we need a good season for her to choose. There's no reason why she would choose us. However, if she was not, the fact that she's still uncommitted has me like she has to, Tech has to be on her mind. Texas is like the number 2 team in the nation right now. She could have, or they were at one point. I don't know what they are now anymore. But Texas has already proven they're good. They're good. She could have committed to Texas a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She could have committed to Texas a long time ago and nobody would have blamed her. They'd have been like, yeah, that makes sense. That checks out. Maybe I'm being optimistic. Maybe I'm setting myself to get my heart broken up again, Joe. But it just seems to me that she is uncommitted for one reason and one reason only. And to see what she can do for the Lady Raiders.
Yeah. I am a firm believer of that. I mean, why else would she like you said, why wouldn't she have already committed somewhere at this point?
Everybody else has.
Right? I mean, she's the only player. Is this going to be like one of those things like LeBron did, the decision kind of deal? She's going to have her own ESPN special or something on ESPN, the Ocho or something. For me personally, I just just pick a damn school. I love that you're from Lubbock, and I love that you've put Lubbock on the map because you're probably going to you're the unicorn of Lubbock athletes up until this point in time by far. There's a large margin between, Jarrett Culver would probably be the only other person that would be kind of in that spectrum, from this area. But, just commit somewhere already. Commit somewhere. Either Lubbock burns down whenever you decide to go to Texas, or you build Lubbock back up and revitalize and give an instant shot of adrenaline into this women's basketball program that desperately needs you.
So I'm and actually saying Culver, if Culver is the number 2, he was a 3-star recruit. So it's not even Culver wasn't even this higher scouted player. So I'm looking at the list right now of the top 100 list ranked recruits for women's basketball on ESPN W. Only 2 are uncommitted. Only 2. One, and funny enough, the other one is also somebody that's been listed as a potential somebody that Texas Tech may be going after, which is Ego McKeer from Canada. So her name has also been mentioned as somebody that Tech has looked into and contacted. So that would be just ridiculous. But that one's more of a long shot. So Ego McKeer, who right now plays at Montverde, and then Montverde Academy, and then Aaliyah Chavez. Those are the only 2 of the top 100. Those are the only 2. And in case you were wondering who I was talking about before when I said she went to the number 2 person, Sienna Betts. Sienna Betts ain't want no smoke. She ain't want no problems with our girl Aaliyah Chavez. So yeah, just an absolute. It would just. No words whatsoever. But we do got to end this podcast with words. So Jeremy, anything else you want to say to the people?
Boy, howdy. We still got sports, guys. That's pretty good. We still got sports.
top tier analysis, folks.
That's right. That's right. No, I'm excited for. Hey, I think Texas Tech basketball. I think the men have a real good shot to get the right wins here at the end of the season. But
Way to
listen,
differentiate it.
I think that's right. Coach Gerlich is really starting to feel like a Cliff Kingsbury figure to me, and not a big fan of that. Not a big fan of the writing the. I mean, love Coach Gerlich. I've talked with her, met with her. I've listened to her speak. She could be the right coach, but I think she's going to have to shake up the staff. And if you have an Aaliyah Chavez recruit, you need to kind of adjust your staff accordingly. So, be interesting times ahead.
Shoot, pull a Kate Cunningham, put her dad on staff. I don't care.
Yeah,
Listen,
whatever.
yeah, you know, it's and mind you, like again, I'm breaking all my personal rules when it comes to this. A good example of this is if y'all remember is Zach Frazier, I believe his name was, back in 2013. We had in our Billy Gillespie was out doing his nonsense, and we had Coach Walker as our interim head coach for that 2012-2013 season. And there was a question of whether he'd be rehired. Obviously, that 2013 season, we were awful. We were pretty bad. However, Keith Frazier, who was a 5-star recruit, would have been the first 5-star recruit in men's basketball history, was between Texas Tech and SMU. And it was pretty simple, is that if Coach Walker got the job, he was going to hire Keith Frazier's AAU coach. It was like the worst kept secret. It was known. So he was keeping his commitment out there for if Coach Walker got hired. And so it was between Coach Walker or going out and getting somebody like a Tubby Smith, right? And they rightfully made the decision to not retain Coach Walker. And the second they made the decision to hire Tubby Smith, literally the next day, Keith Frazier committed to SMU, right? Now, we found out later on that we dodged a huge bullet. Keith Frazier ended up getting Larry Brown fired from SMU because of his whole, the cheating academic scandal or whatever. So that's why. That's why you don't imagine if we would have kept Coach Walker as opposed to Tubby Smith, right? Who knows where this program would be right now if that was the case? That would have been the single biggest mistake we could have possibly made. This is different. This is different. Make the mistake. Go do whatever it takes to get Aaliyah Chavez. Keith Frazier ain't no dang Aaliyah Chavez. This is different. Hire her dad. Hire her AAU coach. Whatever it takes. Joe?
Yeah. Do whatever it takes, buddy. Do whatever it takes. Hell, build a house, throw that out there. Just start throwing random stuff that could potentially be out there, That's build a statue already, pay for the statue at Monterey because there's nobody who's going to touch her scoring record there ever. Yeah. That scoring record, just so you know, the scoring record that she broke, her sophomore year was 1,800 points for a career. And that was from back in 1981. So now her scoring record is north of 4,800 points. Never going to be touched. Ever. So
imagine 20 years from now, some girl plays pretty good. She's like, yeah, man. She goes to Monterey High School. She's like, I got dreams, big dreams of being the best to ever play here. How much is the career scoring record?
Yeah.
She sees it and she's like, come on now. I can't do that.
Let me go. Let me go to Coronado.
Yeah,
I'm out of here.
That's right.
Yeah, that's going to be wild to see how that plays out. But on other fronts, the tomorrow, as people are listening, tomorrow as well, a home series for the men's baseball team, first home series. We finally get to see the women's softball team in Lubbock, and with outfield bleachers, the entire coup de grace kind of stuff with the softball program. So. If you're in and around the Lubbock area and you got not stuff to do, go out and support the baseball team and the softball team. Go see them in action. So, other than that, nothing else to report, brother.
Yeah, we're gonna try not to get swept this time. But we're not playing the number 6 team in the country, so that helps, right?
Nope.
So that was a rough way to begin the season, getting swept by North Carolina. But again, North Carolina has national championship aspirations. And if I'm being honest with all of our close friends here, we do not. As simple as that. This team is now. I'm not saying this team is done. I still think this team is a team that's striving to get to the NCAA tournament, striving to do what it takes to make a movie. But I think watching that series, it's a clear hierarchy. We're not on North Carolina's level, at least not at this moment in time. We'll see where we are by the end of the season. So time to get back on track, like Joe was saying. Starting off with a home series against UC Irvine before heading out to Vegas to get a rematch against our buddies out in Austin. All right, so baseball's happening. And then actually on the diamond, the Big Bad Wolves are the softball team that I know Jeremy and Joe are very excited for. Nijari Kennedy is everything that she was paid to be. Money well spent. No question. So for Mama Z's boy, Joe Lopez, and for the People's Champ, Jeremy Gillen, you have been listening to the Tortillas and Takes podcast, part of the 1012 Network. As always, stay wrecked, people.